so much for the introduction. So, traditional Chinese music has long been associated with portraying the vividness of the natural world. Yet, in an era of rapid urbanization, can its contemporary form engage with more complex ecological and social realities? Singapore's indie music company's ECOncert series, an annual interdisciplinary concert initiative, now in its third edition, offers a compelling case study of how Chinese music can be reimagined and repurposed for the present day. My paper examines the musical and cross-disciplinary strategies employed in the first two ECOncert productions, which explore the complex relationships among humans, the urban environment, and nature, whether by contemplating their coexistence within the cityscape or confronting the global waste crisis driven by consumerism and unsustainable practices. Drawing on research into the music, concepts, and creative processes behind these works, I argue that contemporary Chinese music is emerging as a potent force for environmental reflection and activism, moving beyond static cultural tropes to engage dynamically with ecological concerns. By foregrounding its social and artistic relevance, this study contributes to current discourses on sonic ecology, sustainability, and modern music. In recent years, environmental activism has become increasingly visible in contemporary art music. But how might Chinese chamber music, and specifically a Singapore-based Chinese ensemble, participate in this global ecological discourse? In my talk, I will begin by briefly outlining the historical relationship between traditional Chinese music and conceptions of the natural environment. I will then situate this within current approaches to nature in contemporary Chinese music. Finally, I turn to Ding Yi's ECOncert, focusing on two musical strategies and three cross-disciplinary strategies that articulate their ecological vision. Foundational Chinese philosophical texts, including the Book of Changes, the Book of Rites, and the Tao Te Ching, emphasize harmony among natural forces between humanity and nature and within the individual. Within this worldview, nature functions not merely as scenery, but as a moral and metaphysical model. It is an essential source of virtue that mirrors and guides human conduct. The lone orchid symbolizes integrity in isolation. The lotus, purity unstained by mud. The plum blossom, resilience amid hardship. Even humbler images, yellow cabbage and fallen leaves, evoke poverty, suffering, and impermanence within life's inevitable cycles. These natural metaphors were animated and in music, whether cultivated by the literati for self-refinement or performed by communities whose livelihoods were embedded in agreement rhythms. I would like to share an example of one of my favorite poets, Xin Qiji's writing on the plum blossoms. He wrote, 雪里温柔，水边明秀，不惜春宫里，古清香的迥然天与奇绝. It means gentle in snow, radiant by the water, blooming independently of spring, pure to the bone with tender fragrance and novel beyond compare. Through programmatic depiction and musical techniques, composers and performers throughout history gave sonic form to wind, water, birds, and other living beings, often portraying a world operating beyond human interference. Iconic Chinese instrumental works that demonstrate these associations with nature spanned more than a millennium. They range from 7th century Guqin piece Solitary Orchid in stone tablet mode, often regarded as the oldest surviving written instrumental work in China, to the anonymous 13th century Pipa showcase Hunting Eagles Catching Swans, and much later to Ren Tongxiang's 20th century Suona classic 100 Birds paying homage to the phoenix. Let's take a short listen to the piece Hunting Eagles Catching Swans. This is the part where the eagle is already victoriously having been hunting the swans. example is the part where the phoenix is already flexing its wings. And the phoenix is a mythological bird in Chinese culture. So it's going to be a little bit loud. Contemporary Chinese composers around the world, seeking to reinterpret untainted nature of its surrounding mythologies, continue to employ similar aesthetic strategies. Qiantang River Melodies, a large-scale suite jointly composed by 5 million Chinese composers in 2019 for Chinese orchestra, extols the historical resonance of the Qiantang River. National Taiwan Chinese Orchestra 2016 large-scale production, Listen to the Soundscape of Taiwan's Land, marked the first time traditional Chinese music was combined with field recordings, electronic soundscapes, and sounds of endangered animals in the region, such as the humpback dolphin, the Formosan black bear, and the now already extinct clouded leopard. Malaysian Chinese composer Koh's 2018 work, Sounds of Nature for Sampling and Chinese Orchestra, draws upon 10 years of field recordings from the forests of Sarawak, integrating environmental soundscapes into orchestral texture. My own interdisciplinary fusion work, composed in 2023, Mountain of Echoing Halls for Yangqing on Chinese dulcimer, string quartets, and solo dance, reimagines the intricate carvings of 6th century Buddhist cave temples through sonic and kinetic interpretation. The possibilities for Chinese music to evoke, reinterpret, and recontextualize nature thus remain expansive and continually evolving. Just going to play a very short excerpt from my own work. It was with this expanded vision, using contemporary Chinese chamber music, not merely to celebrate nature's virtuous beauty, but to confront urgent questions of sustainability, that Dedrick Wong, resident conductor and creative director of the E-Music Company, launched the ECOncert series in 2023. Established in 2007, the E is widely regarded as one of Singapore's leading Chinese chamber ensembles, recognized for preserving traditional repertoire, championing contemporary works, and engaging deeply with the community. The Ni's chamber ensemble consists primarily of Chinese instruments across strings, winds, and percussion. The bow string section includes 3 two-string fiddles spanning mid to high range, the zhonghu, erhu, and gaohu, alongside cello and double bass. Plucked strings include the pipa, the ruan, yangqin, and guzheng. The wind section features the dizi, sheng, and suola. There are also 2 percussionists as well. The necessity of these air concerts lies in how specifically they address a historical moment defined by accelerating extinction and ecological precarity. Each e-concert functions as a parable. Nature is not presented in isolation, but as inseparable from the broader socio-ecological system in which it exists. The first e-concert portrays the intricate beauty of nature and its coexistence with humanity in an urban environment. The second, incorporating scenes from eco-businesses documentary Wasted, encourages critical reflection on Asia's waste crisis and humanity's complicity within it. The newly commissioned works integrating traditional idioms, contemporary techniques, theatrical staging, and cross-sector collaborations create a multisensory yet sustainability-conscious experience. In both editions, musicians are positioned as agents of nature through imitation and conceptual embodiments. In the first ECOncert, imitation is most prominent in John Sharkey's After the Rain 6 Reflections, which features solo routine and ensemble alongside a rain-filled recording by sonic artist Chong Chuan. With musicians positioned backstage and among the audience, imitations of crickets, birds, and other creatures envelop the hall in immersive spatial sound. The amplified routine and enduring symbol of self-cultivation evokes calm waters through delicate harmonic arpeggiations. Similarly, in ECO's Winds in the Trees, the percussionist produces wind-like sounds on wooden instruments that are also DIY, their earthy timbre enhancing the tactile sensation of moving air. The integration of forest field recordings foregrounds a sense of vividity and completion. In the second ECOncert, where the focus shifts to waste, nature recedes into memory and abstraction. Field recordings and ambient electronics serve as distant reminders rather than vivid presences. In ECO's A Message from Nature, tense lyrical exchanges between the run and boat streams culminate in the composer's improvisation of the xiao, which continues in darkness after he exits the stage. The bamboo xiao, historically associated with melancholy and in ancient lore the phoenix, becomes a vessel for yearning and sorrow. Like the routine, it embodies contemplation. Here, its solitary voice suggests nature's suffering while urging reflection and action. It is as though nature's voice, embodied in these ancient instruments, endures as a resilient force despite the degradation that surrounds our world today. Padding is the musical depiction of non-nature, the urban or waste, in both ECOncerts. Rather than treating the urban or waste as purely antagonistic, the ECOncerts acknowledge its inextricable entanglement with ecological systems. In the first edition, ECO's urban soundscape portrays city life through solo pipa and metallic DIY percussion. The pipa's repeated drones, chromatic passages, and harsh strumming convey mechanical intensity and dissonance. The technical, edgy characteristic recalls iconic compositions for the instrument in the 18th century, such as Ambush from 10 Sides and The King Removes His Armor. In the second ECOncert, Sounds of Waste by ECO employs the Jinghu, Yangqin, and performers manipulating plastic bags and bottles. The Jinghu is a small, high-pitched two-string fiddle used primarily in Beijing opera. Its characteristic sustained pitch bending lines contrast sharply with the Yangqin dissonant responses and steady metronomic undercurrents. At its climax, the Jinghu player declares 3 times, "Nature doesn't produce waste, humans do," before the ensemble scatters refuse across the stage. Traditional instruments are thus recontextualized to articulate contemporary ecological critique. Interdisciplinary design further reinforces these themes. Both ECOncerts engage in visual depiction of landscape, but with subtle differences. In the first ECOncert, also subtitled An Introspection of the World of Nature with Chinese Chamber Music, the stage is reimagined as a woodland landscape designed by Quex Lee and Jean Ferry. Suspended white fabric drapes evoke forest canopies and tangled lianas, and parts of them extend to the stage floor on uneven terrain like forest undergrowth. Amid the terrain are root and branch clusters as well as broom grasses collected and reconfigured in the artist's studio, which musicians hold to emulate the sound of a thunderstorm. Spotlights from above illuminate the stage during the performance, capturing the imagery of the forest bask in the warmth of sunlight. A suspended and enlarged root cluster, described as the heart of the forest, hangs above, exposed at the center stage, its fragility poignantly juxtaposed against the humanly constructed recital hall. By contrast, the second ECOncert presents a visual depiction of waste with an urgent call for environmental activism by artist Alicia Neo. Reflecting the concert's existential theme, the fragility of humanity in the face of compounding waste, the stage is transformed into a desolate landscape constructed from discarded materials. A barren tree looms in the background, surrounding musicians dressed entirely in black. Inspired by Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, in which 2 characters wait endlessly beside a tree for a salvation that never arrives, the waste-strewn landscape evokes a sense of existential stagnation. Throughout the performance, musicians gradually uncover piles of textile waste, referencing the environmental damage caused by fast fashion. Although conceived with the image of a Zen garden in mind, the installation is deliberately anti-Zen. Instead of balance and moderation, it embodies excess, neglect, and disorder. The corrupted garden reveals a deeper truth. It is not only waste and unsustainable practices that threaten our planet, but also ignorance and inadequate recycling systems that create the illusion of health while the earth quietly deteriorates. Like the characters in Waiting for Godot, who wear bowler hats as they engage in endless circular discussion, the conductor also wears a hat throughout the performance, which represents ideas that remain incomplete unless action is taken. Yet, the concert doesn't end in despair. In the final moments, light pierces through the barren tree at the last gong strike of Avichari's wasteland, a coexistence, suggesting the possibility of regeneration through collective responsibility. At this point, all the musicians already donned hats, intensifying the call for unified action by businesses, policymakers, and the public to build a world in which nothing is wasted. Importantly, this message extends beyond symbolism. The materials used in the installation were sourced from Singapore-based sustainability initiatives such as Clue, which recirculates donated textiles, and Plastify, which recycles collected plastic, ensuring that the ecological commitment of the concert is enacted in practice and not merely represented on stage. As part of their interdisciplinary approach, the creative use of DIY instruments in the second ECOncert materially embodies the principle of sustainability. While organizations such as Yamaha, P-Bone Music, and Sherwood Box Violins are already producing sustainable and ethically sourced instruments, eco-friendly Chinese instruments are still a rarity. One known example is the Eco-Chinese boat strings developed since 2005 by the Hong Kong Chinese Orchestra, which uses renewable PET membranes mounted on their sound boxes, as opposed to the original Python scheme. Not only did the PET membrane still preserve the traditional timbre of the instruments, it also enhanced the instruments' sonic capabilities, such as increasing their overall volume and depth. In the second ECOncert, the piece Humans Produce Waste, a recycling concerto composed by Avichari, features a sustainable cello and run constructed from recycled cardboard. From Trio Packaging, one of Singapore's leading corrugated packaging manufacturers that deliver eco-friendly and high-quality products through environmentally responsible practices. Both instruments are given the space to breathe and engage in lyrical moments. Although softer and mellower in tone compared to their original versions, they speak a lot about the viability and poetic resonance of recycled materials. Their reappearance in the third ECOncert last year, performing the Singaporean folk song Di Tanjong Katong in a trio, further symbolizes this idea of continuity and renewal. I would like to play two short excerpts from both ECOncerts. The first is the feature on the DIY instruments, the cello and the rag. In this second excerpt, you can hear how the last gong strike of Avichari's wasteland coexistence really symbolizes some kind of hope and regeneration. ECOncerts are groundbreaking in their reconceptualization of historical relationship between Chinese music and nature. Rather than merely echoing traditional metaphors of harmony, they transform Chinese chamber music into a contemporary vehicle for environmental advocacy, especially in the face of growing urbanism and consumerism today. Through various musical and interdisciplinary strategies, such as musical innovation, eco-theatrical design, and sustainable partnerships, to name a few, the ECOncerts demonstrate that music, multimedia, and even manufacturing can converge to articulate a shared ecological vision, not just within the context of modern Singapore, but also universally at large. Composer Koh has suggested that our conception of natural environments must now include the urban. But if that is the case, how do we negotiate this delicate balance, and what must we learn, however reluctantly, to let go? Thank you for listening.